Part 106. Yi Yang was going to promote Chinese characters, so he wants to kick the Academy Hall. When the Yao dynasty surrendered, the surrounding small countries no longer had the strength to resist. When another letter of persuasion to surrender was sent to the kings of these small countries, these former high-ranking kings nodded in agreement, expressing their willingness to submit to the Holy Dynasty, listen to the holy arrangements. Nonsense, not surrendering at this time. It is purely courting death. They are still young, there is no need to drag their families to die together. On the first day of March in the 10th year of the Yangnian calendar, under the leadership of Emperor Shengdu, the continent was unified. The name of the Holy Dynasty was also changed to the Holy Country under Yi Yang's suggestion. All states and counties were disrupted, and then the provinces, cities, counties, towns and villages were redivided. All officials took part in the scientific examination again, and the official positions were rearranged according to their respective strengths. After this scientific examination, some people cried and some laughed. Some people jumped from the former 9th grade petty officials to the post of county magistrate. Some people fell from the 1st grade of the official residence to the position of the 3rd grade. And some people remained unchanged. And this reform also introduced a new policy: as long as you reach the age of 50, you can retire, and you can get a pension after retirement. In name, they have worked hard for the country for a lifetime, and they should enjoy it, but these officials know in their hearts, it is not afraid that they will rebel if they seize the power. And all the officials in the court were also scattered, especially the aristocratic families who used to form gangs, and they were deliberately scattered and disrupted. It has been a year since the new policy has been stabilized. Yi Yang has been busy this year. He has been busy helping Zheng Yi revise his official position, revising Chinese characters and pinyin. Busy. Anyway, he is too busy. No time to leave the palace. After finally implementing the new policy, the Chinese characters he just implemented were immediately strongly opposed by the learned scholars. He thought it was easy to implement Chinese characters, but now it is a bit difficult. After all, these knowledgeable great Confucians have many students, and if they anger these great Confucians, it is equivalent to digging their own graves. Especially now that the holy country is unified. More knowledgeable Confucians are needed to bring apprentices, so that more students can be cultivated. However, Yi Yang didn't panic. Since these great Confucians claim to be knowledgeable, let's have a test and let them see what the dimensionality reduction blows to the transmigrators are. Zheng Yi heard that Yi Yang was going to compare his knowledge with the great Confucians, and shook his head again and again. No, these great Confucians are all knowledgeable. I'm afraid you are not their opponent. Zheng Yi has his concerns. These great Confucians are all learned people. Even if Yi Yang is extremely smart, he is afraid that Yi Yang will lose to these truly knowledgeable Confucian scholars. It's okay, I'll pick a topic that I'm good at. And they shouldn't be hard on me. Yi Yang is determined to promote Chinese characters. After all, the characters of this dynasty are not perfect, especially mathematics. The planning of this dynasty is very troublesome, even if there are multiplication formulas, but the speed of arithmetic is still slow like a turtle crawling. In the future, the world is going to develop towards science and technology. If mathematics is not mentioned, how can it develop towards science and technology? But Zheng Yi wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Yi Yang's voice. Your Majesty, do you want the Holy Dynasty to stop? No. After hearing Yi Yang's introduction to his world, Zheng Yi really wanted to see his dynasty become an era when everyone was happy and healthy in his lifetime. Okay, then we will try to focus on the areas you are good at. Zheng Yi nodded. And if Yi Yang couldn't answer, he could help him by the side. After the decision was made, Zheng Yi directly issued the imperial list and sincerely invited the learned scholars to gather in the palace to hold a unique knowledge exchange meeting. These great Confucian scholars are all highly respected people. Listening to their apprentices discussing this matter, they are very disdainful in their hearts. Yi Yang sat in the empty hall, looking at the small desk in the main hall, only to feel a headache. For today's knowledge exchange meeting, he made up for half a month of knowledge, but in the end, none of these great scholars came. And he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. Too much, too much, too much, since you don't give me face so much, why should I give you face? Yi Yang stood up abruptly, looked at Zheng Yi who had already stepped down from the high platform, and said, Your Majesty, please allow me to go out of the palace. I'm going to the Tianfu Academy to kick the hall. Huh? Zheng Yi's face is confused. What is the kick hall? Tianfu Academy is an academy run by the most virtuous and respected Confucian scholar in the Holy City. In today's era of free tuition for all, Tianfu Academy is still a maverick, charging expensive tuition fees and teaching esoteric knowledge. But even so, there are still many students from aristocratic families who have sharpened their heads and drilled in. However, on this day, two young men dressed in white came to the entrance of Tianfu Academy with a 10-year-old child. The guard waiting at the door saw that the two of them were dressed in luxurious clothes, and their aura was even more extraordinary. At first glance, they were either rich or expensive, so he hurried over and asked in a dog-legged way, You two young masters, you are going to send children off, entering the academy? Yi Yang looked at the dog-legged guard, and replied without a smile, Exactly. That's right, it was Yi Yang and Zheng Yi. Who brought the knowledgeable Zheng Lin by the way? Two young masters, please come with the young ones. The guard did not doubt the three, and quickly guided Yi Yang and the three to enter the Tianfu Academy. Tianfu Academy is very large, beyond Yi Yang's imagination, especially the quiet environment and pleasant scenery in the academy. Reading in this environment really helps children learn. It also makes sense why so many students have to go to Tianfu Academy even if they have broken their heads. In such a good learning environment, to be honest, he will also let his children study in this academy. Ah bah, I didn't come to show Zheng Lin the school today, but to kick the hall. The guards are also very responsible. Along the way, I explained many benefits of the academy to Yi Yang and the three, and also introduced that the teachers of this academy are all saints. A well-known scholar in the city. Yi Yang followed behind the guards and went to a bright and spacious room, where he saw children in their teens, shaking their heads, reciting the knowledge taught by Master today. When the guard saw the students reciting, he lowered his voice and whispered, This article is written by our Dean Hong. To be honest, Yi Yang was not used to this chanting style of reading at all, and he didn't understand these children's recitation. What is it? Zheng Yi listened attentively for a while. His expression changed slightly. Yi Yang saw his expression changed slightly, and asked doubtfully, Zheng Yu, what's the matter? Zheng Yu, Zheng Yi's word, was what Zheng Yi told Yi Yang before. And let Yi Yang call him when he is outside. Seeing that the guard also cast a suspicious look, Zheng Yi shook his head, reluctant to say more. This article turns around and scolds him for betraying the various treaties made by his ancestors and going his own way. Sooner or later, the entire holy country will be ruined, and the people will be miserable. I couldn't help but scolded Dean Hong for being pedantic. Didn't he have eyes to see? Can't you see that the people are all happy about his new policy now? In particular, potassium sulfate has been distributed to all parts of the country for free this year, so that people can use potassium sulfate to cultivate the land. Try this potassium sulfate. Is it true that it can increase the output of crops, as Yi Yang said? He was devoted to the people, and in turn, he was scolded by these great Confucians. Yi Yang is not stupid. Seeing Zhen Yi's slightly dark expression, he knows that this article is not good for Zhen Yi. So, he stopped pretending and walked directly into the academy, which attracted the surprised eyes of the students, and even the tidy endorsement sound became chaotic. Get up, then stop slowly. The gentleman sitting at the front saw the students stop, with a puzzled look on his face. Seeing that the students were all behind him, he turned around and saw that Yi Yang had already walked behind him. It was the first time that the class was interrupted so disrespectfully. He looked sullen and scolded. Who are you? Who let you break into this master's class without authorization? Yi Yang glanced at the teacher, and then looking at the students below, he asked, "What did you guys talk about in that article just now?" When someone saw Yi Yang being so impolite, they instantly became angry and pointed at Yi Yang and scolded, "He Fangshao is so young. How dare you be wild in Tianfu Academy?" Yi Yang bent down and picked up the book in front of the teacher, and flipped through it, but he didn't know the characters of this dynasty, and after reading it for a long time, he couldn't understand what was written on it. Someone found that Yi Yang was illiterate, and laughed. I thought who it was. It turned out to be an illiterate who didn't even know a word. So you are the one who came to trouble our academy? The children burst into laughter, mocking Yi Yang arbitrarily. Yi Yang was not angry, but looked at them with a good look on his face. Laugh. Laugh. How proud you are now, how much you cry later. When Zhen Yi saw that these children dared to laugh at his Yi Yang, he was so angry that he strode into the classroom, exuding the monarch's unique aura, and the pressure made these half-old children almost breathless. They all looked at Zhen Yi in shock. They really didn't understand how a person could have such a strong sense of oppression. Obviously just standing there quietly made them tremble with fear. Seeing Zhen Yi coming out, Yi Yang shook his head at him, motioning him to give up the home court to him. Although Zhen Yi was unhappy with these children, he still took a step back and gave the home court to Yi Yang. Seeing Zhen Yi taking a step back, Yi Yang felt warm in his heart, and then his eyes suddenly twitched as he looked at the students below. Since you doubt my knowledge, why don't we compare it? Compare what? The children here, the oldest one is only 13 years old. Hearing Yi Yang's words, he immediately asked in a vigorous manner. He still didn't believe it. Couldn't he be able to deal with a man who didn't know big characters with his knowledge? The teacher on the side saw that Yi Yang dared to challenge his studies, and he was a top-notch Rao Jingxuan in all aspects of his family background, so he did not stop him and watched the show. Yi Yang didn't bully the child either. He smiled and said, "You give the question. I'm afraid you won't be able to answer it if I give the question, so you should give the question. Otherwise people will think that I am bullying a person who doesn't know big characters." Rao Jingxuan's chin slightly rises, with a proud look on his face. Since the other party has said so, Yi Yang is also welcome. After all, he is not good at pairing. If the other party has a pair, he will definitely suffer a loss, so he smiled and said, "Okay. Let's try to write a poem." Rao Jingxuan saw as soon as Yi Yang opened his mouth, he ran into the field he was good at, and sneered in his heart, "Okay." After hearing this, the other classmates laughed, because they knew that what Rao Jingxuan was best at was writing poetry, and they all looked at the show Yi Yang's clown. Yi Yang, who had hundreds of poems in his mind, was not afraid of the others' poems, and said, "Since I write poems, it's up to you to decide what type of poems I write. Otherwise people will say that I bullied the small." Rao Jingxuan didn't care. Whatever type, as long as everyone thinks it's good. What do you think? Okay. Yi Yang nodded and said to himself, you go first, otherwise I'm afraid that you will be after I read it out. I don't have any self-confidence anymore. Rao Jingxuan laughed angrily when he heard this. Really, go ahead, I'll see how capable you are. The others all stared at Yi Yang sullenly. If it wasn't for the etiquette in the academy to control them, they would have driven this rude idiot out of Tianfu Academy. Do you really want me to read first? Yi Yang asked uncertainty. Rao Jingxuan said excitedly, are you afraid of this young master? Since Rao Jingxuan said that Yi Yang was not polite, he coughed lightly and said slowly, the wind is swift and the sky is high. And the monkey is screaming. Nagasa Qingsha and white birds fly back. Boundless falling trees are falling and endless rivers are rolling in. Thousands of miles of sad autumn are often guests. And they have been on the stage alone for more than 100 years. It was changed to Tianhe, the mother river of the Holy Dynasty. After Yi Yang finished reading, the entire school was so quiet that needles could be heard falling, and everyone looked at Yi Yang in disbelief. This is impossible. How could a person who does not know big characters read such a good poem? Are you sure someone wasn't teaching him behind his back? Yes, it must be. There must be a great scholar behind this poem. And then let Yi Yang come to their Tianfu Academy to make trouble. Zhen Yi was also stunned. He didn't expect Yi Yang to read a good poem that was astonishing. How talented is he to write such a good poem casually? It's too much for you to arbitrarily copy other people's poems. Rao Jingxuan blushed with anger. He didn't expect Yi Yang to be so shameless to move someone else's poems. Although Yi Yang did copy the poems of the poet Du Fu, no one in this dynasty could testify that he copied the poems of the poet, so he had no fear and asked, what evidence do you have to prove that I copied someone else's poems? If you didn't copy other people's poems, how could you possibly read Wanli Beichu as a frequent guest? And on stage alone for more than 100 years? The teacher on the side looked gloomy. How could it be written by the old man who was entangled in it by the young master in front of him? Who didn't know the fireworks of the world? Why can't you write without experience? Yi Yang is really confident. Anyway, no one can find evidence that he copied other people's poems. The teacher was very angry. He didn't expect Yi Yang's face to be so thick that he wouldn't admit to being exposed. Don't be angry, sir, this is really my own poem. If you don't believe me, you can check it out. If you can find out that this poem was not written by me, I will kneel down and apologize to you all. Yi Yang is still very confident, after all. This poem is the poem of his time. If the other party sells you the poem, how can I check it? The teacher was so angry that he really wanted to kick Yi Yang, who looked confident, out of Tianfu Academy. Sir, you don't have to be angry for this kind of person, so as not to hurt your body. Rao Jingxuan walked out of his seat and came to Yi Yang. He was obviously a head shorter than Yi Yang, but he still maintained his aura as he bowed. Young master, if you say that this poem is really written by you, then please write another one. Want to embarrass me with this? Oh, naive. Just as he was about to speak, Zhen Yi stepped forward and said, why don't I come? Oh, is this blatant cheating? Rao Jingxuan sarcastically. Yi Yang quickly waved away Zhen Yi, who wanted to help, and said, little baby, today I'll show you what poetry is. I'm waiting. Rao Jingxuan looked at Yi Yang with a good look on his face. Okay, since you guys want to listen, then I'll start reading. Yi Yang coughed forcefully and slowly read, Moxiao farmhouse wine is muddy, and the harvest is full of chickens and pigs. There is no doubt that mountains and rivers are heavy. The road, the willows are dark, and the flowers are bright in another village. The flute and drums are following the spring society. After reading this one, everyone was shocked. What a poem, what a poem. However, Yi Yang did not stop, and continued to read. The dark clouds are pressing down on the city, and the city is about to be destroyed, and the golden scales of Jiaguang are opening to the sun. The sound of horns fills the sky, and the autumn color is filled with rouge and the night purple. The half-rolled red flag is on the Yishui. Obviously, it's just a poem. But everyone just feels like they are there. They feel like they have traveled to the battlefield in an instant, watching our soldiers bravely kill the enemy on the battlefield. North of Gushan Temple in the west of Jiating, the water surface is at first level and the clouds are low. Several early warblers compete for the warm trees. And whose new swallow pecks the spring mud. The flowers are becoming more and more charming. In a trance, they felt that they had come to the lake from the battlefield. Looking at the green lake view, I only felt that the irritable mood was slowly eased. From disdain at the beginning, to slowly indulging in it at the end. Even the teacher was convinced by Yi Yang's ancient poems, showing obsessive eyes. Good poems, he is so grown up, it is the first time he has heard so many good poems. Every poem has its amazingness, it is simply breathtaking. Even Rao Jingxuan, who was the most unhappy with Yi Yang at the beginning, was conquered by Yi Yang's wonderful poems after another. With such a powerful literary talent, there is no one before or since. Even Dean Hong of their academy can't do it, so many great poems. After reading about a dozen poems, Yi Yang felt his throat dry and hoarse. He coughed and said, "Okay, let's stop poetry today. After all, there are so many inspirations. I'm afraid it will be dark after I finish reading. It's alright, there is a carriage at my house. And I can take the young master to my home when it gets dark." Rao Jingxuan said with a dog-legged expression. Long since his previous arrogance was gone. Yi Yang is depressed. Do you want him to memorize the poems from elementary school as well? Of course, he doesn't have the time to accompany these little kids here to memorize poems. The purpose of his visit today is to kick the academy's door. If you want to know more good poems, I'll talk about it next time. We are here today to look for your Dean Hong. What are you asking for our Dean Hong? Are you coming to teach at our academy? Rao Jingxuan asked expectantly with his dark eyes wide open. It's beautiful to think about, we're here to make trouble. Jun Lin couldn't stand it any longer, so he poured a bowl of cold water on Rao Jingxuan with a cold face. Looking for trouble? Everyone was stunned for a moment and then looked incredulous. Why? Rao Jingxuan couldn't understand why these three people wanted to trouble the respectable Dean Hong. Because your remarks are inappropriate. Jun Lin was very dissatisfied with the article they recited just now. What the king did not do, listen to the villain. Violated the rules handed down by the previous emperor, etc., which is not cursing his father emperor. His father emperor unified the continent, but he set a precedent. Which emperor has unified this continent since ancient times? These great Confucians are just stubborn. How can this make the Holy Dynasty develop? What's wrong? Rao Jingxuan asked in dissatisfaction. Everywhere. Seeing that the two children were about to quarrel, Yi Yang hurriedly interrupted their meaningless quarrel and said, "Xing Hao. What do I always say to convince people? Convince people with virtue." Jun Lin glared at Rao Jingxuan unwillingly, and then said to Rao Jingxuan, "Can this student compete with the next one?"